His name was Connor Walsh. And when I met him at a house party in February, two things were immediately true. He was genuinely, disarmingly handsome in that effortless way that people who spend a lot of time outdoors tend to be. And he was the most confident person in the room. Not arrogant, confident. There's a difference. He didn't talk over people. He just seemed comfortable in his own skin in a way that I, at 23 and halfway through nursing school and deeply tired of boys who couldn't hold a conversation, found irresistible. He had a degree in biomedicine, he told me. He was taking some time to figure out his next move. He was thinking about a PhD, wanted to become a professor eventually. Ambitious, I thought. I like that. Reader, I did not yet know what I was dealing with. The first 3 months were genuinely lovely. He was sweet, thoughtful. He remembered small things I'd mentioned in passing. My favorite tea, the fact that I hated cilantro, the name of my childhood dog. He texted back promptly. He showed up when he said he would. After a string of situationships with men who treated basic decency like it was a personality trait they'd invented, Connor felt like a revelation. Then came game night. My friend Bex hosts a board game night every few months at her apartment. Big table, too much wine. The kind of rotating cast of people who are competitive enough to make it interesting, but not so competitive it gets ugly. I brought Connor for the first time in April. Excited to show him off a little, excited to watch him charm the room the way he'd charmed me. We played Ticket to Ride first. Connor had never played, which was fine. None of us had been born knowing how to play Ticket to Ride. And Bex is an excellent teacher. She walked everyone through the rules patiently, twice, for Connor. He came last, and I want to be clear, coming last at Ticket to Ride at your first game night with a new group is extremely normal. What is not extremely normal is what happened afterward. On the walk to the subway, Connor spent 45 minutes. I know because I checked my phone twice, explaining why the game was fundamentally flawed, why the rules were designed to favor people who'd played before, why Bex's explanation had been confusing, why the guy who won was probably cheating. Not overtly, just strategically withholding information that should have been shared, and why, ultimately, board games that required that kind of ruthless thinking probably attracted a certain type of person, and he wasn't sure he wanted to spend his evenings that way. I said, "Babe, I think it was just a tough first game."
He said, "No, I think I've identified a real problem with the game's structure."
I thought, that's a lot, but I shook it off. Everyone has bad nights. The Scrabble incident was at Christmas. His family's place upstate. Beautiful house, genuine fireplace, snow coming down outside. The kind of setting that makes you feel like you're inside a movie. His mom and sister had gone to bed early and Connor pulled the Scrabble board from a shelf and I thought, perfect. I should say I'm not a Scrabble shark. I'm decent. I know a few two-letter words. I understand the triple word strategy, but I'm hardly someone who studies tiles for fun. It's supposed to be a relaxing game. A cozy winter activity. I won the first game by 60 points. I offered to help him strategize in the second game, walking him through some of my moves, and he said no, he was fine. I won the second game by 90 points. By the third game, the energy in the room had completely shifted. Connor was staring at his tiles like they'd personally wronged him. When I played courts on a triple word square, he went so quiet that the silence had its own weight. After the game ended, he didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "I just don't think Scrabble rewards actual intelligence. It rewards memorizing weird words that no one uses." I said, "Quartz is a real word, though." He said, "I know it's a real word. I'm saying the game is broken." I started picking up the tiles and thought about how many more days I was supposed to be here. Here's the thing I kept doing. And I want to be honest about this because I've thought about it a lot since. I kept making excuses, not for him exactly. More like explanations. He's competitive, I told myself. He has high standards for himself. He just needs to build his confidence. As if confidence were a thing I could build for him by being patient enough, by never pushing back too hard, by carefully managing how I delivered any observation that might sting. Do you know how exhausting it is to manage someone else's ego in real time? To perform cheerfulness while quietly recalibrating every sentence before it leaves your mouth? I didn't realize how tired I was until I was already exhausted. The router incident happened in June. His internet went down, and he called me panicking, so I told him to download his router's troubleshooting manual using his phone's mobile data and work through it. Straightforward stuff. I'd help him remotely if he got stuck. I went over that evening to find he'd spent 3 hours working through the manual for a completely different brand of router. Not even close. Different manufacturer, different model, different everything. When I pointed this out gently, he stared at me for a moment and then said, the router manufacturers had deliberately made their manuals confusing, and the whole industry was engaged in a quiet conspiracy to make people feel stupid so they'd pay for tech support. I fixed the problem in 11 minutes. I drove home and sat in my car in the dark for a while before going inside. The math thing was its own slow-moving disaster. He'd enrolled in some prerequisite courses for his master's application, which I already thought was strange, given that he had a biomedicine degree and these were courses you'd expect a biomedicine graduate to have already taken. When I asked him about it, he'd change the subject or give me a vague non-answer, and I filed it under things I'm probably overthinking. But the logarithms? God, the logarithms. He started posting on Facebook about how impossible they were, long posts. Not just I'm struggling with this topic, full essays about the inadequacy of the education system, about how logarithms were a perfect example of mathematical gatekeeping, about how the real measure of intelligence was practical problem solving, not abstract number games designed by academics to make themselves feel superior. I learned logarithms in the 9th grade. I'm not a mathematician. I don't have any particular gift for numbers, but I remember thinking, at 14 sitting in class, okay, this is a bit fiddly, but I think I understand what's happening here. I read his Facebook posts and felt something cold move through me, a feeling I didn't want to name yet. I decided to talk to him. A real conversation, calm and direct. No game nights, no moment of crisis. I sat him down on a Sunday afternoon and told him as kindly as I knew how that I was finding it hard to keep up with his negativity, that the constant venting about his coworkers, about my housemates, about board games, about math, about trains, about everything was draining me, that I cared about him, and because I cared about him, I thought maybe talking to a therapist might help him develop some tools for managing the way he processed frustration. He looked at me like I'd suggested he eat glass. He said I didn't care about his feelings. He said he should be able to say whatever he wanted to me. He said therapists just wanted to prescribe you medication and convince you that everything was fine and you should stop having standards for yourself. When I mentioned that psychologists aren't actually licensed to prescribe medication, he went very quiet and then said, "That doesn't matter. They still just want to convince you it's fine to be a loser." I asked him if he thought he was a loser. He said no. He said he just believed in staying aware of your flaws and punishing yourself when you made mistakes. That's why he ran so much. To punish himself. I sat with that sentence for a long time after he left. To punish himself. We'd made plans to go sailing before all of this. Before the Sunday conversation, before the logarithm posts, before I started privately wondering whether I was being unreasonable or whether I had been quietly losing my mind for months. We talked about it at the beginning of summer, one of those charming local things where you rent a little sailboat for an hour and drift around the lake, and it sounds romantic and easy and fun. For the first 10 minutes, everything was fine. We were out on the water, the sun was doing exactly what you want a summer sun to do, and I thought, maybe I've been too hard on him. Maybe I've been making a mountain out of nothing. Maybe this is the reset we needed. Then we had to turn the boat. Turning a sailboat is genuinely a little tricky if you've never done it before. You have to coordinate the sail and the tiller and your body weight, and it doesn't always go smoothly the first time. This is normal and expected, and the rental company had told us as much. Most people laugh about it. Most people treat it as part of the fun. Connor did not treat it as part of the fun. I watched it happen in slow motion, the failed turn, the boom swinging the wrong way, the boat lurching sideways, and then his face. That particular shade of pale that I'd come to recognize. The color of incoming weather. I made a joke. Something light, something self-deprecating. "Well, the ocean's clearly broken." He said, "Oh, sure, it's always fine to be shitty at things, right? Who needs standards?" I said, "Connor, we're on a boat for fun. There are no standards." He said he should have known not to expect to be any good at sailing. I said there was no reason he needed to be good at something we were just doing for an afternoon. And then something in him just cracked open. He started talking and he couldn't stop, about how he couldn't do anything right, about how people who didn't care how well they did were dumb, were wasting their potential, were lowering the bar for everyone, about how I just wanted him to be happy being mediocre, about how the boat was stupid, about how sailboats as a concept were stupid, about how our town was unreasonably windy, which is a sentence I have thought about on a near daily basis since. He stopped talking eventually. Then he snapped at me every time I asked him to hold a rope or adjust something. Every single piece of communication reduced to single syllables, clipped and cold. Because the boat wouldn't turn the way he wanted it to. Because the wind didn't cooperate. Because the world had once again conspired to make him look incompetent at something he'd never done before. I looked out at the water. I thought about the Scrabble games and the router manual and the Facebook posts and the Sunday conversation and the thing he said about running to punish himself. I thought about how long I'd been managing the temperature of every room we were in together. I thought about what I'd said to my friend Nadia 3 weeks ago. I feel like I'm always babysitting his feelings. And the fact that I'd walked it back almost immediately, told her I was exaggerating, told her he was really so sweet underneath it all. Was he, though? He was sitting at the other end of the boat now, facing away from me, rigid with fury at a lake. I thought, no, I'm done. I broke up with him 2 days later. Not on the boat. I want to be clear about that, even though part of me will always treasure the mental image of swimming to shore dramatically. I did it calmly, at his apartment, and I was kind because I think even then I understood that there was something genuinely hurting in Connor that had nothing to do with me. Something about the way he'd said I punish myself when I make mistakes had never fully left my head. He didn't take it well. There were tears. Mine too, honestly. He accused me of giving up on him. He said he knew he could be difficult, but he was working on it. I told him I believed him, and that I hoped he would keep working on it, and that I thought he needed to work on it without me. I drove home. I cried for about an hour. Then I ordered pad thai and watched television for 4 hours and went to bed, and when I woke up I felt, and this is going to sound brutal, lighter. Not happy, not triumphant, just lighter, like I'd been carrying something for a long time without fully registering the weight of it until I put it down. Here's the thing I've been turning over ever since. I went into that relationship seeing someone who seemed confident, and what I was actually seeing was someone who was terrified. Terrified of looking stupid, of being exposed as less than he believed himself to be, of a world that kept presenting him with evidence he wasn't equipped to process. And I confused his terror for competence, or maybe I just wanted to believe he was as solid as he looked. The saddest part is that Connor wasn't a bad person. He was funny when he was relaxed. He was capable of real tenderness. His catering boss loved him because on the things he knew how to do, he worked with genuine dedication. But he needed someone to carry his emotional world for him, and he'd chosen me without asking, and I'd picked it up without noticing, and by the time I noticed, I'd been carrying it for months and hadn't written a single paper I was proud of, and had started pre-checking my sentences before I said them out loud, and had twice driven home from his apartment and sat in the dark in my car before going inside. That's not love, that's labor without a contract. I'm in my final year of nursing school now. I see a lot of people in crisis, people who are genuinely unwell, genuinely scared, in moments of real and terrible need. I've thought about Connor in that context more than once, about the way suffering can turn inward and make a person's world very small, and how much damage that small world can do to everyone living in it. I don't hate him. I don't think I ever did. But I do know this. You can feel compassion for someone and still understand that you are not the right person to save them. You can recognize someone's pain and still protect your own. Those things are not in conflict. In fact, knowing that, really knowing it, not just saying it, might be the most useful thing I've learned in my 20s so far. That and how to turn a sailboat. I looked it up on YouTube. Takes about 4 minutes to learn. The wind, it turns out, is not unreasonable at all.